While I was doing this video, I was thinking about one good reason why you would not want to do these recommendations, and I couldn't even think of one. Welcome back to the Pinpoint channel, guys. Thank you for watching, and thanks for the previous views and the subscriptions and all that. We really appreciate it. We did a video recently where it was about the 4 common mistakes that people do in terms of your form. That was quite popular, and I decided to do something today in the line of that, more or less, but it's going to be more on what people do to their bows to gain something, but in the end they actually lose accuracy. So the first mistake I see is when people make their draw lengths too long. And I'm not the form police here. I'm not going to tell you how to shoot. I know there's a lot of pros shooting this way. You know, you can see they're leaning back, and you know they've got all the bad elements of bad form, but they shoot well, and it's great. If you can shoot that way, awesome. I'm not here to tell you how to shoot. I'm just pointing out the mistakes you might make if you're struggling. But if you're shooting well, then obviously you don't need to worry about that. But you might want to play with that because you might increase your accuracy as well by making adjustments to your form. But in the end, the fact is a lot of people shoot too long. And the reason for this is they often try to gain speed by making their draw lengths longer. Hunters are guilty of this a lot of times, and also unmarked 3D archers tend to go down this line just to get that extra bit of speed. And yeah, sure, you can also go to short. That's also a disadvantage, but people don't tend to go that way because you actually lose speed. So they tend to go longer, is that they're trying to gain something, they're actually losing something in the end. And what are the signs of a too long draw length? The first sign to look at from a first person point of view is your pin will move very slow. And it might be good for some people for their shooting styles. For some people, it might mean that that pin is actually spending, even though it's moving slow, it's actually spending more time outside the area you're trying to hit. So it might look good for you, but if you actually do the testing and shorten it up slightly, you might see that it might look like it's moving around more, but it's actually spending more time inside the scoring area. So I explained this in another video where I did a video on stabilization, and the whole point of it is when I'm trying to set up a bow is that I'm trying to figure out a way to see how much time my pin is spending inside the scoring area. So what often happens, if you make it very slow, it will move slow, which is correct. And as I said, it's beneficial to some shooters. But then when it actually moves out, it actually takes longer to get back. Almost like a too heavy bow, which we'll get to now. And when it's too short, it will, be so fast. It won't spend a lot of time inside that scoring area, and then it's out again. And then it might be the case where you get a draw length in between, too long or too short, where it will actually move slower than too short, but faster than too long. But if you calculate the time it spends inside the scoring area, you will actually see that it's actually spending more time inside the scoring area. How do you calculate this? Well, that's the tricky part. It's hard, but you can do group testing, and you can try and figure out and feel what feels best for you. But the point is here that if you have it too long to gain speed, you're actually putting yourself at a disadvantage. Number 2 is when you make your D loop too short. And this falls in line with trying to gain speed as well. And a lot of people do this because you can lengthen up your draw length by the length you lost on your D loop. So the problem with this is, like, especially for handheld guys, you're increasing torque on your string. So if you turn your hand to anchor, you will actually turn that string, and it's almost impossible to turn your hand the same way every time. And you will also have the tendency of your loop pulling together and pinching your knock. Those are the 2 disadvantages of having your loop too short. So I'm going to do example now of a long D loop and also then a D loop that is on the edge of being too short. Okay, let's look at this D loop. This D loop is 7/8, and this is about the length I like to run. It's quite a long D loop. You don't have to go that long, but I just like to run it that long because when I have inconsistencies in my hand, it's almost like it just helps me and it forgives me a little bit more than a short D loop. I'm just going to show you the different effect of a long D loop versus a short D loop. So this is the long one. So watch what happens if I move my hand up and down. There's minimal movement on that string, but there still is. It's still not perfect, but there's as close to perfect as what you're going to get it. So I'm going to take a bow with a shorter D loop now, and I'll show you the difference. This is about the shortest is what I would go, especially when you have a knock set at the top and the bottom on this particular bow, because what you're doing now is you increasing the leverage on your string because the D loop is further apart. So when you twist it, it actually has more leverage to turn that string at full draw. So let's check this one out. All right, so I've got it at full draw here, and then you can actually see it's quite a lot more than a longer D loop. So how long should your D loop be? Well, that's a personal thing of what axle to axle you use, what release you shoot, what let off you shoot. But my rule of thumb is I don't like to go under a half an inch, especially when you have two knock sets tied, bottom and top. I like to not go under 5/8. This is for handheld release. If you shoot a wrist release, you can get away with a little bit shorter, even though I don't like that because when you go too short, those two ends of the D loop tends to want to pull together more because it has more leverage and it wants to go closer, and then at the end you have pinch on your knock because the serving can't hold it. And then also when it gets too short where it pulls into your face, this is now for both releases, wrist release and handheld, you're going to kill your accuracy. Often the reason people do this again is to gain speed. The third mistake people do to their bows is they make it the incorrect physical weight. Whitetail hunters often do this, and I do understand it because your shots aren't far. You know, it's usually just 20 yards max. I do get it, and that's about the only acceptable scenario I can think of where I would say weight of the bow is not that important if you just want to carry it from the truck to the tree stand, and then that should be fine. I mean, that's up to you to decide. But for guys that's going to shoot a little bit further, like the Western style hunter, or the guy that hunts out in the mountains or in Africa where you're going to do a stalk hunt, you're going to tend to shoot a little bit further. There might be wind. You're going to be winded. You're going to be tired. And then, of course, you're also going to have this buck fever. And people tend to make their bows too light. And there's a trend these days to go for the lightest bow possible. And it's like the manufacturers are pushing that and the people are catching on to that. But I think there's a point where you get too light. And I've seen this where people like struggle to actually make the shot. It's fine to carry it around, but when they tend to make the shot, they make a bad shot because it's a different scenario being out there than being at home where you're relaxed and there's no wind and there's no buck fever and the elements aren't against you. But do the testing. If you carry a little bit of extra weight around, get used to it on your bow, and then you'll be glad when you take the shot and you actually feel that you have confidence with a little bit more of a solid bow in your hand, especially when it's windy, and also all the elements I did speak about, especially target archery guys. When the pressure's up, a too light bow tends to move around a lot more, even though with the target guys, I see the trend of making their bows too heavy because a few pros are doing it and then everybody just follows suit. But I don't think it's the right way. I think still good form, proper setup comes first, and stabilizer weight don't just fix your form magically. It will actually hurt you in the end because you are relying on pure weight to hold that bow steady, and you forget about everything else, and you're just looking at your sight pin and trying to get that bow off in the right spot. And in long term, I don't think it's the way to go. So the conclusion of this is just to experiment with the right amount of bow weight for you, and just do testing yourself. Again, yeah, I'm not telling you how you should shoot. I'm just giving you ideas and giving you some formula to work with and to work towards, just to try to get the optimum bow weight for you. And this is physical bow weight. And the fourth thing is when you shoot too heavy draw weight of a bow. And I know a lot of guys are guilty of this because they're chasing speed like you do with draw length. And often it's a combo of too heavy bow and also too long draw length. And then it's when it gets a bit ugly. And, you know, it's fine if you can handle it. Again, yeah, I'm not telling you how to shoot, but I'm just saying experiment with a bit of draw weight and see what is the best for you. And especially when you're hunting, and it's fine at home or on the range where you can stand comfortably, you can draw the bow. But on a hunt where it's cold, you know, or you have to shoot from your knees, you have to draw your bow, you're dehydrated, you know, then it gets a bit harder. And especially when you're a hard hunt, you know, you're going to be a little bit weaker when you're winded. Don't be caught out just because you're chasing speed and kinetic energy. I get that sometimes you need the heavy pounds, you know, like for African game and big game across the world, but often, you know, it's like people tend to go over. It's again where you start increasing a bit of draw weight and you actually see there's advantage with your speed and your arrows are flying flatter, which is 100%, it can increase your accuracy. But in this case, it's not always that more is better. Then people will go the extra draw weight and just go more and more to the point where it's actually getting to where it's a disadvantage. And don't fall in that trap. See what is optimum for you and do testing. And remember, number one is accuracy in archery, and it will never change. There's nothing to gain when you're sacrificing accuracy in archery. Remember, archery, number one, is about accuracy, and that's the same with hunting. Everything else comes second, every single thing, because without accuracy, you are at a disadvantage. If you're going to shoot 320 feet a second and you're shooting at a paper plate at 40 yards and you're shooting at 280 on a golf ball, it's a no-brainer. There's no debate about it. And this is all I'm saying, is just try and get that sweet balance, what works best for you, but don't fall in the trap with a too heavy draw weight bow. That's going to be it for today. If you're still here, it means you're enjoying the videos. Don't forget to subscribe if you do like them, and we'll keep on bringing you more content and new ideas and just everything archery. And we really appreciate you being here and watching our videos, and we'll see you soon.